Welcome to the September meeting of the Arts and Tradition Bearers Working Group of the Bayou Culture Collaborative. Mark DeWitt, co-convener of this group, along with Lola. We have this meeting every month, and this month we are very happy to have with us Jonathan Foret, who is the executive director of the South Louisiana Wetlands Center and a member of the management team of the Bayou Culture Collaborative. And he's going to be speaking to us today about Trunk of Traditions and what festivals do for us. So please take it away, Jonathan.
Thank you very much for that. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick and go into presenting mode with this. There we go. If at any point anybody has questions or comments, please feel free to jump in, because we're a nice small group that we can do that. So I'd like to start just by kind of giving a little bit of credit. Hey, Brooks, we just started. It's good to see you, man. Just to give a little credit to Maida on the journey that I think the festival has gone on. A while back, and this started out at a Louisiana Folklore Society meeting. Maida and I talked about the role of folklorists, tradition bearers, artists in what was happening to the coast, because largely it was viewed as a engineering, science, climate problem, and not necessarily one that had people at the center of it. And so we worked really hard to try to change that narrative. And I think that now, a few years later, we're seeing some success with that. But one of the things that came out from those discussions was this idea of a trunk of traditions. And so I hosted what we called a culture wear party. So it was sort of like a Tupperware party, but instead of selling little plastic containers, we were selling culture. So we figured if it worked for that model, of like a Avon, the Avon party kind of thing, maybe it could work for us too. And so it was a fun night. We invited people from the community to my mom's house, where we did a cooking demonstration of making a shrimp dip, where people were able to take the recipe home with them, but they also got to eat the food there. And then we talked about what were the important things culturally that you hope to see, um, 7 generations from now. Your great 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 grandchildren, like, what do you hope that they would um still be doing, right? And
That's a great question.
yeah. And one of the things that we also talked about is, in 7 generations from now, there's the high probability that there are food replicators, and you just kind of type in a few buttons and it's going to be like Star Trek, and the molecules are just going to come together in front of you in a particular pattern that gives you the type of food that you're going to want to eat. I'm talking, another 300 years from now, if humans are still in existence in 300. And so you know we wanted, even if the way that those foods are prepared will change, the flavors still need to be the same. And there will need to be people that remember and understand what those true flavors taste like, to make sure that they get replicated in the right way if we're talking 300 years down the road, right? So we recognize that culture is fluid. Culture needs to be a little nimble, because it needs to respond to the people that hold it. Because if it doesn't respond to the people that hold it, then it's kind of pointless and it belongs in a museum, right? So when we say, this is how you make a roux to make a good gumbo, we recognize that future technologies may have an influence on how the process takes place, but the flavor should still be the same. Like the essence of those traditions remains the same, even though the way we get to the final product may change a little bit. And I think that's true for um just historically, right? Of things that we try to preserve. We try to preserve those things, but not lock it in and say this is the, I mean, well, I guess some people try to do that, but that's not the goal of the work that we're doing with the festival even. So that's sort of how this idea of a trunk of traditions came to be. When we had this cultural wear party at my mom's house, and we were just having a big group discussion, and people started talking about the things that they wanted to see go in the trunk. And food, of course, was a big one. Music was a big one. I mean, for this particular group, because they were more Cajun folks in the room, it was Cajun music. That, I mean, all of this is very Cajun centrified, if that's the right. My perspective as a Cajun man, that's the perspective that I'm coming to you guys with right now.
Yeah.
And so it was the seafood, but it was also the way that we caught the seafood, along with the ways that we prepared the seafood and preserved seafood. We talked about, the fur industry being a part of our story, but that trapping nutrients and wearing fur and things like that may not necessarily be something that goes in the trunk. We talked about it being an important tradition, but not something that folks were really set on, like, we need to keep skinning animals. So there were some things that came up that didn't go in the trunk. Um, the French language was a big one. So Louisiana French, trying our best to preserve the language. And then also our folk tales, our stories, our oral traditions, trying to make sure that those um, aren't forgotten, right? So um, I'll start here with this next slide to say that I am a Lagniappe kid. So in Chauvin in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had a festival called Lagniappe on the Bayou. And although I am not pictured in these photos, I every year my favorite thing to do was that little duck game. So the little ducks went spinning around, and you had the net and you scooped a duck, and there was a number on the bottom of it, and it correlated to a little prize. There's also Miss Brunella Luke there selling her corn shuck dolls, folks preparing and serving food. This was another little game where you pulled the string and it correlated to this little block of wood that came up with a number on it, and you won the prize that correlated to that number. So this event, this festival or fair was sort of the what do you call it? The pinnacle, I guess, the highest time of life living in Chauvin in Terrebonne Parish, I can say was associated. This was the height of our community and involvement and coming together. Um, the commercial fishermen would go out and catch all the seafood and donate it to the fair, because and everybody did that. The oyster fishermen, the shrimpers, the crabbers, everybody donated, and everybody had ownership and an investment. And people came from around the world to see this Cajun community, and see what it was like to live an authentic Cajun life. What I think the fair did that people weren't expecting was, um, people were proud that the Cajun shame sort of went away. And if you're not familiar with that, it's, like, people think that if we talk with a heavy accent or we wear white shrimp boots or we fit, we go trawling, that were less educated than other folks. And so there's a bit of a shame that would come with being from down the bayou, right? And so this event put this group of people on a stage, and others from around the world came to see it and loved it and thought that we were such a special group of people. And so it gave us all a sense of pride in who we were and didn't have to feel that shame because we had a flat accent. It was cool if you had a flat accent, right? Um, and so I really think that being a part of the community and being a part of Lagniappe on the Bayou as a little kid, watching my parents volunteer in the different booths, um, it sort of laid a foundation for um, it laid a foundation for me in what I believe to be community and something that has the capability of bringing people together and keeping those important traditions alive. Um, so this next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the food, right? So in this, when we talk about a trunk of traditions, I'd like for you to visualize our festivals, and this isn't just a Louisiana festival. This is a formula for any group of people. A festival is the trunk. This is the vehicle that we carry all of these traditions within. It's also a way that we can keep those traditions going. And as an example, Miss Maggie Kibido, who is to the left of your screen, scooping out the blackberry dumplings. Her mother, Miss Pearl Boudreaux, made the blackberry dumplings at Lagniappe on the Bayou, and now she is making them for us at Rougarou Fest with the help of her daughter. And then there's the help of the daughter's children that are coming up. And so people take ownership of these food booths, and it becomes a sense of pride, especially, and look, blackberry dumplings, it's hard. Everybody loves blackberry dumplings, right? So it's hard not to be a fan favorite when you're in that stand. But there's a sense of pride that goes along with all the folks who are eating that delicious dessert and complimenting that family of like, wow, this is delicious. Or some people come up and said, I remember when your mama used to make these at Lagniappe. And so it keeps it keeps those traditions alive. And of course, there's the crackling down at the bottom underneath that picture from Miss Maggie. And then we seafood and beignets and all of those things. It's very important for us, and I think it should be very important for every Louisiana festival, although it's not the case. I would like to see it the case. But we serve only Louisiana seafood at the Rougarou Fest. We know that's the case because we catch it, we peel it, and we cook it. So we know where it's coming from. I know a lot of other groups, may buy pre-made items from, large wholesalers and just fry it and cook it and send it out, because it's much easier to do that. But we believe in, we can't say all of the things we say and not do the things that we need to do that go along with that mission, right? Um, so again, the seafood gumbos, okra gumbos, all the jambalayas, the fish courtbouillon, the alligator sauce piquant, all of those things are very intentional. The things that we have at the fair, at the Rougarou Fest, are the menu items very intentional. Now, of course, we've got hamburgers and hot dogs too, because some people are coming with their kids and they're not eating alligator, right? And so, but again, those things were at Lagniappe as well, and so it's the along with the food, it's the smells of the food, and you guys know this too. You have core memories that can be triggered by onions browning, right? That onions browning always brings me back into my grandmother's kitchen. No matter where I smell it, it makes me think of her because um, that she cooked delicious food, and it always started with an onion. So food is a big thing of what goes into that trunk. Um, Another thing that we do at Rougarou is that we have a narrative stage. I have to give credit to Maida for this one as well, because this came about after conversations that we've had with her, because she had also done these narrative stages or storytelling stages at other events a few years ago. And so we built off of the work that she had done, and so these are a few pictures of our narrative stage where we have someone interviewing a tradition bearer about their tradition, to where people in the audience can learn a little bit about what they do. Um, we're 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 shifting gears a bit. We've had sort of this larger stage for the tradition bearers, and now this will be our first year that we do a folk life village, similar, not exactly like Jazz Fest, because obviously we don't have the budget of Jazz Fest, but it's building on that same spark that Jazz Fest does. And so we're looking to have 3 tents in our village to start off with. One will be the BCC tent, where the working groups will have space to be there, to talk to folks about the work of those groups, have different activities, things like that. We're working with Maida also to have a Trunk of Traditions activity where people can come up and we say, in 7 generations, what tradition do you hope continues on? And folks can write that down on a piece of paper or draw it, and put that in the trunk. Brooks, who's with us in the group as well right now, we just did a summer camp called Storm Shelter that also use that trunk of traditions, of asking people what it was that they wanted, and the responses were really wonderful. What I loved about, because Brooks had an art program, a lot of the responses were drawn out, which was really cool. So there was a frog. Somebody drew a frog. I don't know, Brooks, if you remember who it was, but somebody drew a frog, and it was an acronym, and it stood for folklore, maybe it was Rougarou, I could be wrong. FRO, okra and gumbo. It was like folklore and something and okra and gumbo. And I thought that was so clever. I mean, Brooks, do you want to jump in and say anything about how that went for your program?
Uh, yeah, it was really cool to build off of this idea, especially given like the reality of what's going on, and like having, what would it look like to have like a meaningful connected relocation for those folks that have to. And then I think that's part of what was so meaningful for me being able to build off of what you're doing, is because it gives it a more positive context. It's like, what do we want to, what and how do we want to like continue these traditions? And I would, I'm a visual artist, so it was just fun to like invite people to draw, and they were going to town, man.
It was some good stuff. It really was. And I'd also like to invite all of you this Friday. Brooks is going to be presenting at the BCC the BCC gathering, and so you'll hear more about some of that work that he's doing. So thank you for that, Brooks.
Yeah, of course. You'll get to hear what about the Nutricorn and his siblings. You'll get to learn what a crossquito is.
We're looking forward to it. So what we're doing is taking this idea of the narrative stage and bringing that into the Folklife Village. There'll be the BCC tent, and then we'll have a larger tent where we're planning to have the narrative stage under that tent in a little bit more of an intimate setting. Because at the festival, having this on a large stage is kind of cool because it gives it literally elevates the conversation. But it created too much space between the audience and the folks that were talking. So this year we're going to try it in a little bit more of an intimate setting where it's a shorter platform stage where the audience members can kind of be up close and personal to where they feel as though they're a part of that conversation. So I think that's really going to work out well. And then the other tent in the Folklife Village will be a demonstration tent where we'll have Miss Janie Luster doing basket weaving and working on her garfish jewelry. We're trying to get a net maker there. We may have a duck carver there showing that skill and tradition. So all of that, again, we are evolving into what we want to be, and each year we grow, we shift, we change, we see, okay, this didn't work, but we like what we were trying to do with it, so let's reframe that in some way. So being flexible on those things, I think, is also very important to get to where you want to go. Music, of course, right? That was one of the things that was very important to the group that we talked about to put in the trunk of traditions. It's always fun to find a group that and this is what I'm saying when I mean, it has the spark of the tradition, but it modernizes in some way, shape, or form. It's oh man, y'all help me with the Sweet Crude. That's it. Sweet Crude is a band in New Orleans that sings in Louisiana French, but they do so in a way that makes it sound like pop music and not traditional Cajun music. Again, not bashing traditional Cajun music. Like, I love that too, and it has a place. But it's really fun to see folks you know, modernizing things and keeping those traditions alive and making them relevant. We talked a little bit earlier about how the culture needs to respond to the people that hold it. I think these folks are making it relevant in a way that it's going to keep it alive for hopefully forever. But what does that mean? So yeah, on our stage we have a whole bunch of different folks that we celebrate. There's a picture of Mr. Jimmy Southern holding his accordion there. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, but we were also able to celebrate him as a tradition bearer from the lieutenant governor does these tradition bearer awards in October, and he was the recipient of that award that year. And it was just something beautiful to be able to recognize this man for all that he's done, in particular for Louisiana music, Cajun music. He was sort of an icon in this area for you know promoting that music. But yeah, we have, there's the Cajun Music Preservation Society that's in our area. That's wonderful. What that group is they're playing on Sunday for the festival this year. But what's amazing with this group is they connect Cajun musicians to people who want Cajun musicians. So even if you say, I'm having an event, a small venue, I just need a fiddle player. You call this group and they set you up with the person that you would like to play. So they're a wonderful group doing a lot of meaningful work about keeping traditional Cajun music alive. But yeah, so music is another big important thing. It fits festivals. You kind of expect to have live music at most events. So that works. And of course, folklore. That's a big thing that the Rougarou Fest does. Obviously, it's in our name. One of the things that when we began doing I want to make sure I'm good on time. Yeah. Okay. If I go over or talk too much, please just say like, all right, Jonathan, we're going to bed. You can stay up and talk all you want. But when we decided to do the Rougarou Fest, it in part came about because the Wetlands Discovery Center does work with K through 12 students mostly. We do educational programs based on wetlands science. So we go into the classrooms and we'll teach about soils in the 3rd grade because those kids have to learn about soils. What is not mandated is that they don't have to learn about alluvial soil, which is the soil that they live on. So we go in and we teach them about the regular soil stuff that they're going to need for that state test, but then we supplement that and let them know about the place that the soil that they actually live on, and that alluvial soil was brought in by the Mississippi River and that it subsides. And so our land is sinking. So what does that mean? In terms of erosion. And so we're going in, doing these lessons, talking to the kids, and I can't remember. Now, look, this will be the 13th year of Rougarou Fest, so this is at least 14 years ago. My grandparents talked to me about the Rougarou and said, if you don't behave, the Rougarou is going to come and pull your toes. And so I grew up with those stories, right? And so that was all very fresh in my mind. And I made the comment to one of the classes, and it was probably a 3rd or 4th grade class. And I said, oh, you better be careful because the Rougarou is not going to like that. None of the kids in the class, and I was at a down to wire class. None of the kids knew that story. And so they were like, what's that? And I was like, what do you mean, what's that? It's a Rougarou. Like, it's the werewolf. And so you got to be good or he's going to get you and he's going to come pull your toes. And then, like, I probably shouldn't have said that because then I don't think that the teacher was just like, please don't tell the children that because I'm going to have to deal with the parents saying that some guy came in saying somebody's going to pull their toes at night. But that that experience made me realize that these stories were not being passed on for whatever reason, right? Maybe the entertainment now has become video games and devices instead of storytelling, which that's sort of a big entertainment thing that we had back in the day. And so that prompted us to want to keep that part of our folklore alive. And so what better way than to create a festival around that story, right? And so fast forward 13 years later, and I have an office full of little shoebox dioramas with little werewolf and Cajun cottage scenes because kids are now doing these types of things for their social studies projects in school. And then their parents are like, well, we don't want to throw it away. What can we do with it? Let's call that guy that does the festival. So I've got a little collection of kid projects now about the Rougarou that I can't part with either. But so that makes me realize that we have done some really important work in keeping those oral traditions alive and keeping those stories alive. Now, when we go back and we talk about how does the culture how do we adapt it to fit us? If you look at our logo, which we're going to go back to in that last slide, our Rougarou is wearing a vest, he's got a cane and a hat, and he's dancing and smiling and having a good time, right? Because the story and the narrative for us kind of shifted a little bit. And for us, the Rougarou is sort of like our Smokey the Bear, right? Only you can save coastal Louisiana. And if the Rougarou doesn't have a place to live, then neither will we. So it gives us that sense of urgency that we need to save our wetlands, you know? So the Rougarou for us is sort of that narrative has shifted into more of a protector of the swamp rather than this scary creature that comes in and pulls your toes. Again, the essence, the core of that story remains the same, but we have adapted it to sort of fit what we need the Rougarou to be right now, and that's to help us save where we live, right? There's also the Fifolet, the Lutin, all of those stories we kind of wrap up. There are kids' games we do. We have the Lutin toss, and so it's a little beanbag toss that has a picture of the Lutin. Well, what we believe the Lutin to look like, because the Lutin is sort of like a little gremlin elf kind of character. And then of course the Fifolet. This year, the Rougarou Queen, the theme of her costume is the Fifolet. And what she is hoping to do and is building momentum to do is to create a new crew for our Rougarou parade, the parade that goes around. And she wants to have a group of Fifolets. So it'll be, folks lit up when all the lights at night, dancing around like the Will-o'-the-Wisp kind of characters. In our parade, we already have zombies and we already have the Cajun Coven, which is a group of witches. And so they dance through the parade. So this will be a new addition. And it's beautiful that this isn't, it's very much like this group. It's very much like the BCC when we started it, and then these working groups developed from it. It was really beautiful to watch momentum go in different directions, and we no longer we don't have a leadership role in all of those working groups, and it's wonderful to see that. And it's similar to what's happening here. The Queen is dressed as a Fifolet, and she wants to create this whole new group that adds to what we're already doing, and then it gives some focus to the Fifolet as a story in our folklore and keeps that alive. So we think that that is pretty cool. This is really the meat and potatoes of what we do, and it's community. And I realized the power of festivals and fairs, the ones that are doing it for the right reason. Lagniappe on the Bayou, Chauvin was one of the best places to live in the world. I am convinced of it in, the 70s and 80s. A big part of that was us coming together for that fair and working so hard and being exhausted and loving every minute of it. And we did it side by side with people that when hurricanes hit, we helped each other bounce back and rebuild after storms. And this was a thread that kept us together. And then in the late 90s, the bishop at the time decided that stewardship should take care of the church, meaning you shouldn't be doing fundraisers. You should just pass the basket in church. And that money is what the church should survive off of, not these fairs and festivals. So we're going to end that now. So this one man's decision to stop those events really, in my opinion, led to something terrible for Chauvin. People did not get together in such a large group to celebrate who they were anymore. Families didn't come together and work hard side by side, and children didn't learn from seeing that. People just sort of lost, like it just felt like that joie de vie, if we want to use that, it just got misplaced. And so Rougarou Fest will never replace, nothing will ever replace Lagniappe, because it happened in a little community at the perfect time to really create something magical for the people who live there. And that's just not going to happen again. I don't want to sound, I don't want to come across as being pessimistic or sounding negative by that, but it was sort of a moment that happened, and we have to celebrate that moment, but let it go and look at what we can create now that is based off of that same spark that Lagniappe was, but it's Rougarou, and it has the same feelings. It has some of the same people, and we hope that we can build community again, and we are. I mean, it's 13 years in, but we can see already a lot of the benefits of bringing people back together and working hard, and enjoying working hard together. That's been I don't want to say the unexpected gift in all of that, because I think we had hoped that it was going to create that. So in looking at a festival as this trunk of traditions, and that the festival is the vehicle, the festival is that box, but we're also just bringing all these people together with that trunk, which is the beauty behind all of that. And so I talked earlier about me being a Lagniappe kid, and someone said this, and it really hit me, because they were like, you know, you always say that you're a Lagniappe kid, but what I'm really thankful is that my kids get to be Rougarou kids. And I was like, man, that's it. Like, that is 100% it. That was confirmation for me that we're doing what we set out to do. Because I know what I feel when I say I'm a Lagniappe kid and how I identify with that. And I love that this next group of kids may not have had Lagniappe, but they have Rougarou. And who knows, maybe Rougarou falls apart in another 5 years, 10 years. And I only hope that there's one of these kids in these pictures right here that remembered the feeling that they had there, and working in the booth next to their grandparents and wanting to chase that feeling and create whatever the next thing is going to be to pull people back together and to keep those traditions alive. So anyway, that's it for that presentation. There's my contact information if you guys need any of that. And that's the logo that I was talking to you about. So it's still a little creepy, you know. I mean, it's a man with a wolf head, and there's some big teeth on there. But he's not as menacing, perhaps, as my grandmother made him out to be when I was a little kid, you know. Because again, the Rougarou fits who we need the Rougarou to be right now. So thank you guys for the opportunity to be able to talk with y'all today about the festival. And I really look forward to seeing y'all and working with y'all there, hopefully.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, you're getting some applause here. You might have to hear it. Maybe you can see it.
Thank you guys. Thank y'all.
It was awesome to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, maybe you could stop sharing so we could see each other.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, for sure.
And then maybe we could have a little Q&A, time for a little Q&A.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I had a question for you where you were mentioning the Queen.
Yes.
Queen. I had a student who had been a queen, and I learned from her how, like, when you're a queen, that whole year of your reign, you know, you have the opportunity to go around to all these other festivals in Louisiana, all over the state, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And represent your community and what they do. So does your queen do that? And what does she have to say for herself when she does?
So we have a non-traditional queen. And so What that means is, I mean, of course, it's
I'm not
Rougarou.
surprised.
Of course, we wouldn't have a traditional queen. So, for the queens of the festivals, there are some fairly strict requirements and guidelines on being a queen. It's a whole world. It's a whole
Mm,
world
mm,
that we discussed. Maybe our queen would be one of those girls, and it's I think they have to be between like, I don't know, 16 and 24 or something. Like there's an age range, a young age
mm,
range. And they travel the circuit of festivals, and they're able to become friends with the other festival queens, and they do have an opportunity to get on the stage at, like, let's say the Crowley Rice Festival. All the queens would be able to get up on the main stage and say, "Hi, my name's Jessica, and I'm the queen of the Rougarou Fest," and give a little tagline. We hope to see you in October on the 18th, 19th, So it is a marketing strategy as well, and building relationships with other festivals, which I also think is very important. But for us, we we didn't want to do it that way, and so our queen is selected from our volunteers. So if there's somebody that works with the festival, and they have helped us out for a couple of years and participated in the things that we do. We wanted somebody who had an investment in the festival and knew the festival because they worked with it. There's a secret group of people that would offer the reign of that year to someone who's helped. And they can say, "Yes, I'd love to be queen." And sometimes we've had people say, like, "No, I'm frying shrimp. Like, I'm not going to be the queen. I got work to do." Um, and so that's sort of how, and although the queen can represent us at different events and everything, and she's welcome to do so, it's not the same circuit that the other festival queens run. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But thanks for that question.
Yeah. Other questions?
And I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just I was about your trunk of traditions. I really liked that concept, and I think that's a great question to pose to the community, because you could have one experience as, like, yourself, like you said, you're coming from a Cajun male perspective or whatever, your own
Yeah.
life, but
Yeah.
then opening it up to the public, you get a broader view
Yeah.
and see how many things, yeah, align, and learn about new versions. And I like that how the name just kind of goes back and forth in my mind between the tree trunk and like the treasure
Yeah.
chest.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I never thought about that in those terms of a tree trunk. That's really cool.
I was picturing yeah,
That's
what
beautiful.
like physically, but
Yeah.
yeah, I like the versatile terminology.
Yeah, that is cool. Thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I've been in the middle of working on our own, family folk life project at the Children's Museum. So you give me a lot of inspiration. Probably have some more questions for you. Um, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
I mean, I was curious to see what you were going to say about how festivals, contribute to perpetuation of traditions. And I think you brought up a lot of good examples about that. And you really talked more about the effect on the people who are involved with the production of the festival more than on the effect of the people who come
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
paying their admission fee or whatever they're
Yeah.
doing.
No, I honestly think in my experience, putting on these events benefits the community a whole lot more than the folks who are coming to enjoy the work. One of
Mhm.
the things too that I failed to mention earlier, which I think is important, the Rougarou Fest started in downtown Homa, in our court square. And then 2 years ago, I mean, we got the pandemic was there, and then Ida was there, and then we moved the festival from the courthouse square in downtown Homa to the current location near the Civic Center and our property, because we have property there that we're trying to build out event center grounds. The more hamburgers we sell, the more nice things we can build for the festival, you know? And so we moved it. And part of that was a bit of a demonstration project, and a learning experience, because we had a lot of pushback in the beginning, because our downtown has these big, beautiful oak trees and the old buildings, and it kind of feels creepy already. So you have this nice built-in atmosphere for Rougarou Fest, right? And so a lot of folks through social media, and you guys know how fun social media can be when you're trying to manage stuff. They were like, "Oh, you need to keep it downtown. Like, don't move it. This is the worst mistake. Nobody's going to it over there." And so we really, had to stay confident and be like, "No, this is going to be the best thing that we can do." We had outgrown the space as well. And being downtown had a lot of limitations of when you could shut down streets and when you could set up tents, and you got court going on and you can't interfere with that, and elections. And so you can't have, so moving it made it much easier on us logistically, because it was on our own property. We could start setting up the Monday before the festival, like tents can start going up. And so it was much easier for us. And then we began to start hearing, it's so much better where you guys are. We got so much more room. Oh, I like it so much better. You know what? I thought it wasn't going to be so good, but we love it where it's at now. And so it's just hard to get through that initial negativity, because people don't like change. Change is hard. I get it. But now that we're in this location, we've been there 2 years. This will be our third year. People see that it's better, they've accepted it, and we have also proven that you can move a large event to a new location as long as you do so with intention and care. It's possible to keep it going successfully, right? So, and I say that because, and we did think about this, that what happened, and look, I hope Rougarou goes into, it's like the 97th annual Rougarou Fest. I mean, I'm not going to be here, but I would love nothing more than to know that it continued on. And if, due to sea level rise, climate change, land loss, hurricanes, all of that, if at some point in Rougarou's future it's no longer possible to have it in that location, we have proven that we can move it if we do so with great care and love, and it can move. And so when we talk about trunk of traditions and the festival as a trunk, we picked it up once. We can pick it up again if we have to make sure that all of those traditions, our culture, can continue to be celebrated, even if it's not celebrated where we originally started it.
Well, it's an example of what you were saying about cultures have to be nimble.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And so does the festival.
yeah, 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 for sure.
Yeah. And the vehicle may change, but we still
Right.
need,
That essence, the core of what it is, if it stays the same, you'll always succeed, And I mean, I know we're getting close to time, but I also just have to give a ton of kudos to Maida, because I may have gotten there eventually, but Maida set things into fast forward and enabled me to help my team to do what we're doing now, which is beautiful. Like, it's not just carnival rides, it has importance and meaning for our people. And I don't think I would have gotten there without Maida's help. So thank you so much, Maida, for making that happen for us. Seriously.
I think you give me a little bit more credit about some of the inception about BCC, because I really, what I remember is that you started this whole thing.
Don't put the blame on me.
That he approached me and a handful of other folklorists with the Louisiana Folklore Society and wanted them to come down to Homa to meet. And one of the only times we've met this twice in 2 year, in 2 years in the same place. And he just kept pushing that conversation about what are we going to do about, the environmental changes that the folklorists need to get involved. And so he was the one who had that vision, and I helped implement it along with a lot of other people, but you're the one who saw the need.
I appreciate that, but I couldn't have done any of that without your support, though, for real. And part of that, not part of it, all of it is, and this is another thing Brooks is gonna, on this Friday, we'll talk about. We all have a responsibility in this, and it's whatever we're good at. Whatever we're good at, we can take that and use it to move the needle forward in a positive direction. And I guess, looking at what I do on a daily basis and working with the festival, I feel like that's something that I'm good at. And I don't want it to just be carnival rides. I want to do what we're doing, and I feel that if we can work hard and be an example, and other festivals want to share in that, I welcome it. I really do. I'm not, if other groups are coming in and doing trunk of traditions at their festivals and doing a folk life village and narrative stage, I celebrate that more than y'all would know, because it's the meaningful work. So yeah, and on Brooks's side, as an artist, and this Friday coming in talking about, as an artist, what is his responsibility to move the needle for it? We all have it. As a photographer, we all have a responsibility. And it's like, oh, I'm not an engineer. What am I going to do about a levee? No, but I got this, and so I'm going to do this, and it feels good. It feels like we're doing something, and we're doing it together. So I appreciate you guys. Didn't mean to get all sappy and sentimental at the end of it.
All right. Thank you,
We-
Jonathan.
We like
Thank you.
We appreciate you.